On today's menu, I'll be making a different version of our Belizean light cake. Instead of using evaporated milk, I'm going to be using orange juice. I'm also going to be making the Belizean icing. You're watching the Bear Pantry Show. So recently my cousin Cindy, who lives in New York, asked me to troubleshoot a cake for her. She's making my Belizean light cake that's in the cookbook, the beans and rice and Jesus Christ, shameless plug. And she's having a little bit of trouble with the cake because she's changing out the evaporated milk for orange juice. So she says when she bakes it, there's a little streak, like a thin little line, that makes it look like it's not cooked all the way through. So what I have here on the counter, I'm going to show you guys. I didn't flour this yet because I want to show you every step of the way what I do. I'm not going to measure things out like I normally do with the show. So this is just greased. This is a 9x13 pan, 9x13x2, and it's greased because she said she's using that type of a pan. I would never make cake in that pan unless I'm doing like a milk cake for a party, but I prefer layered cake. But she says that's the pan that she's using, so I'm going to do it exactly the way she's doing it to replicate it, okay? Replicate it. So let's get started. First of all, here. Now, the first thing we want to do is measure out the butter and the sugar because that has to get creamed. And I'm using my KitchenAid today because I want to move pretty quickly. So in the book, the measurement for the butter calls for 1 cup plus an 1/8 cup. Now, I have a lot of sets of measuring cups, but I noticed that none of them come with the 1/8 cup anymore. So I went and did something for you guys today, and I measured out 2 tablespoons and put it in here, and that's what 1/8 of a cup is. So now it's going to be a cup plus 2 tablespoons of butter, okay? So write that down, you guys. Was asked me to put it in the description. I don't like putting the measurements in the description because it just gives me that much more work to do. So I've been putting it on a little blog page now and again. But I let you guys know when I put it there, okay? So that's measured out. So here's the cup. And this is how we measure butter. Okay, this is room temperature, so it's not hard. It's not like soft where it's melted in the microwave, so it's not too soft. And I always put more in the cup and then try not to pack it too much. Just kind of spread it out and then go with the back of the knife. It's not coming so good because this knife is curved. Go with the back of the knife as best as you can and take that off so it can be flush, okay? So it's flush. So that's 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of butter. And yes, it matters. The 2 tablespoons of butter does matter, okay? So do not delete that out. Okay. And then for the sugar, and I'm so glad I have Jada helping me out today because I really wanted to do this some justice. For the sugar, and I usually scoop and shake when it comes to the sugar, but because we're troubleshooting, I'm gonna take some off the top, okay? It's 2 cups plus a 1/3 cup. Okay, and most measuring sets come with that 1/3 cup, so don't worry about that part. So that's 1 and 2 plus a 1/3. That's a 1/3. And we're going to get this on the KitchenAid right here. And we're going to get it started in a little while. I don't want the noise to bug us right now, so I want to show you something else. So I want to show you guys something. The reason why the measurements are so odd for the cakes and stuff in my book is because before I wrote the book or started doing the show, I used to measure with this cup, this little coffee cup from All Saints Church in Belize. And if you notice, this cup is different than this cup. So if I were to tell you guys, use a coffee cup to measure blah, 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 you wouldn't know what to do. So I created a formula, started to use these universal things, and I found out they're not quite as universal as I thought because I have a YouTube viewer in Australia that's now become a friend, Angie, and she told me they're a little bit different there, and they're also a little bit different in Europe. So let me stick this out the way. Just wanted to tell you that little bit of thing right there. And so you guys can get your stuff ready. We're going to use baking powder, and it's going to be a tablespoon. We're going to be using pineapple extract. Normally I'll use lemon, but I didn't have lemon, so I use pineapple, and sometimes that's a little secret thing that makes it even better. And we're going to use only a 1/4 teaspoon of pineapple extract. And we have 5 eggs. That one's broken, but we have 5 eggs here. And I'm going to measure out the flour in a little while for you guys to see. And when I measure out the flour, I'm going to flour the pan to show you guys how to flour the pan. I didn't do it yet because I don't want to get my nice black shirt all floury. I never use an apron. I don't like aprons. I feel like I'm choking when I use it. So the other thing that we're going to need is orange juice. And this is just orange juice from Costco. Any orange juice will do. And get your measuring cup because you're going to need to measure like 10 ounces. We're going to start with that and see where we go with it, okay? So in the meanwhile, let me get this started. And when I come back, we'll be flouring stuff and getting the ball rolling. Alright, so I just let that cream for like 8 to 10 minutes. Now it's time to measure the flour, guys. I've got a big tub here for the flour. This is a 1 cup measurement. See, I have different sets. This is a long knife that came with a set that I had, but I like because it has a really straight back. So they have spatulas that they sell that you can get so you can measure your flour, okay? And I did not pack it down. That's 1 cup. And 2 cups and a half. Okay? And I didn't sift it. You can sift it if you want to, but you don't really have to. Baking powder is going to be a tablespoon. This thing here on the baking powder is to measure off and level off your baking powder. For years I didn't know that, okay? Oh boy. How do I have a cooking show? I don't know. Go ahead and mix that really well together. This is my little plate for cleanup of the mess. And what we're going to do now is add the eggs one at a time. I'm going to turn back on the mixer and add the eggs one at a time. Start with the first one. And what I've been doing is using my spatula to scrape down the bowl while it's going. And here's the last one. 5 eggs. And now we're going to add the extract. It smells so good. I should make some snow cone syrup today. And you can stop it because you might not be able to scrape it without stopping it, but I'm a pro. Oh, it smells good. Pineapple. And what the orange juice does is keep the cake more moist and stop it from going bad too quickly, okay? So you know I always do this like in a third, so I'm going to eyeball like a third of the dry. I think that's about a third. Put back on the KitchenAid. Oh, I really need one of those covers, so I keep forgetting. That's why I stopped using it, because I need one of those spatter guards. I'm going to wrap a cloth around it next time. Now that first batch of flour is worked in, I'm adding in some of the wet, which is the orange juice. And I'm pouring it slowly because I don't want it to splatter and make a big mess. And I usually add the dry, in thirds, and I add the wet in thirds. So this is the second batch of flour right here. And then I'm going to make sure that gets worked in and clean down the side of the bowl with the spatula along the way. Add some more of the wet, which is the orange juice. And then now here comes the last batch of the flour. And the last bit of orange juice I'm going to save to see if I need it. Alright, so I left the last 2 ounces of the orange juice because I want to feel the batter to see how we're coming before I know if I'm going to need it all, okay? In the meanwhile, I promised you I was going to show you how to flour the pan. So I just put a little bit of flour. Remember, it's already greased. And just kind of shake it around. Do it on the counter so you don't make mess on the floor. And this is, let's see. My camera lady Jada can get it, see? That's the sides. See, you're getting a mess here, but that's okay. It's okay. See, it's all flour. And this is a non-stick pan too, so we'll do good with this. And just kind of beat it. That's why I always have a big flour thing. And that's done. Go ahead and mop up the mess. And that's flour. So let's get back to the batter, okay? Alright, so it got it a little bit less thick, but I think we can still tolerate the rest of our orange juice, okay? So I'm going to put the whole, so that's 10 ounces of the orange juice. Now, isn't it going to suck if this cake comes out bad? I would have recorded all this for nothing. And sometimes I do that, Sometimes I go ahead and I record and test on camera. And sometimes I look out and stuff comes out good. And sometimes it doesn't come out good, and I can use a segment of it to show you guys that it didn't come out good. So just let me get this working. And if you notice, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, it's a different consistency for the batter than when you use milk. It's smoother when you use milk. This is more cottage cheesy. So I'm gonna set my oven to preheat at 350 degrees Fahrenheit while I get this worked in, and I'm gonna pour it in the pan in a second. So here we go, just pour the batter into the pan, spread it out as best as we can with a spatula, and then kind of knock it down so it can all be even. For the oven to preheat, I'm just gonna let the batter rest right here for a little while. And when the cake is done, we're gonna try the Belizean icing again, because when I did the icing the last time, I used my mom's recipe and the icing was softer, and so it had to set after you used it. But one of my viewers, Dorita Alonzo, I think, Weir, I'm gonna check the name in a minute. She's in Quintana Roo, and she gave me the recipe that some old lady gave her years ago, where the icing comes out stiff and you can use it immediately. So we're gonna try that too, okay? Now into the oven it goes. And close it. Let's check the time. It's 11:33 in the morning. We're gonna time it to see how much time it needs to cook, all right? 1 hour later, it's time to check on the cake, and although it looks nice and brown, I won't know if it's finished until this skewer comes out clean. I stick it and I feel it kind of foamy, so I don't trust it. I don't think it's quite done. I'm gonna stick it back in here for about 8 more minutes, and then we'll check on it again. So look, it's about 6 to 7 more minutes later. Let's see what we have. So I definitely don't want it to burn, so let's try to test it again, okay? When I tried it a little while ago, it just feels kind of goopy. Alright, so that's clean. That's one section. Let's go in the middle. That's clean. Let's go on the other end. That's clean. So I'm not expecting any problems with it not being cooked. So let me go ahead and get this out of here and put it on a cooling rack. There we go. I'm going to let this cool for about 15-20 minutes before I dump it out, okay? So it's time to dump it out. And it's breaking away really nicely from the sides. No problemo. The pan is still warm, so rather than get burned, look at that, how beautiful that is. Now I'm not going to cut into this right away. I'm going to make sure it's cooled completely. I'm actually going to frost it first with that icing. So let's move on to the icing part of this. Okay, hi guys, so the cake has completely cooled, and I'm going to do the Belizean icing, okay? And this is the recipe that Dorita Alonzo Weir gave me. I'm going to put her name up, put her little Facebook thing up so you guys can see. So this, so far, is 1 egg white. See the yellow there? We're not going to use the yellow, but this is 1 egg white. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice or lime juice, whichever one you have. And we're going to use 2.5 cups of icing sugar, which is also known as confectioner's sugar, or it's also known as powdered sugar. It's all the same thing, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is whip this to a peak, like if making lemon meringue pie. And then we're going to start adding the other stuff, okay? So now that the egg white has foamed up, it's time to add the icing sugar. And don't add it fast like I did on the left side of your screen, because it's going to cause a powdery mess like you see here. Add it slowly, okay? So just keep on mixing the icing sugar with the egg whites until it starts getting satiny. And then it's time to take a break and add 1 tablespoon of the lemon juice. And if you want this icing to be a little bit more tart, add lime juice instead, okay? So here's the next cup of the icing sugar or the powdered sugar, and just keep getting it worked in. I keep dodging the powder that's flying up in my face. Here's the next tablespoon of lemon juice. And I keep mixing away, and now it's the 1/2 cup of icing sugar, because remember it's 2.5 cups. Now that it's done, I'm adding a couple drops of the purple coloring or food dye, and I want to get this worked in with a spatula. I don't want to add much more than that, because I want this to stay like a nice lilac color or a lavender, if that's, you know, what it looks like on camera. And now it's time to move the cooled cake onto my cutting board that I'm going to use, and then I douse it liberally with some of the icing. And I want to spread quickly with my knife or offset spatula. I don't own one of those, but one day I'll buy one. Or at least that's what I keep saying, right? And of course, don't forget to frost the sides of the cake, all right? So it's finally time to cut into the cake, and I'm going to make another batch of icing and put a different color to decorate the cake. But I think we've waited long enough to see if this cake came out good, okay? So now here's the first piece. Let's take a look. And yes, I am so pleased. The insides are cooked all the way through. It looks moist. It's not dry. and the icing is setting really, really well. Look at this. This is gorgeous. You guys will love this if you make it, okay? Very simple cake, very few ingredients. And now what I'm gonna do is move on to my next batch of icing. And yes, this is me using a piping bag. I'm gonna try. You guys know I suck at this, I always tell you. And I'm just gonna squirt little dots or little stars or whatever you want to call them on top of the cake. And I love the yellow and the lilac or lavender combination right here. Just go around the edges, and look, I'm gonna make staff lines for music notes. Yeah, right. It didn't happen that way. But you know what? It's squirting into its own little design that I absolutely love. So I'm just going to keep going with that and just, make my little mishap turn out to be something fantastic. I think it's gorgeous. So I had a really great time testing this recipe today, Cindy. I hope everything that I've shown you helps when you make the cake again. That's why I measured while I was on camera. I don't usually measure while I'm on camera because it saves on time, but I wanted to do that so you guys can see how I measure and exactly what went into making this cake and how long it took to bake, okay? It looks fantastic. I mean, I can't frost or icing a cake or anything like that for beans. I just can't, but I tried. I love my colors. I'm just gonna say that much, okay? Anyways, this was a beautiful cake. It's moist, it tastes good. And if you have any more problems, call me, okay? Call me Cindy. Anyways, thanks as usual for watching the show. If you like the video, hit like below for me. Share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much for picking up the books. And until I see you guys again, take care. Frosting is so good. Icing, icing, icing.